Hi, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to all of you who have tuned in. In line with a very popular traditional custom in West Bengal, the state where I happen to come from, let me wish you all Shubho Bijoya, which means a festival greeting. This is a festival culminating with the puja of goddess Durga, which most of you would probably be aware. And this is a time for getting together, for sharing, caring, and strengthening human bonds. So wish you all and your families a really very, very happy, or as we say, Shubho, which means Shubh and Bijoya. Before beginning this today's webinar and introducing to you the speaker for the webinar, let me recall very fondly an association, an event actually, which happened some years ago on this date, the 8th of October. This date is actually very special to me because of a memorable experience on that date. You know, on the evening of 8th October in 1988, I was privileged to attend the last Calcutta concert of Pandit Ravi Shankar. And as luck would have it then, I was actually invited by a very well-known architect in the city who was a member of the club where the function was being organized. And he knew we shared this passion for music, so he very kindly offered to, extend an extra card to me. And we were there in this concert. It was a very memorable concert. We didn't know that it would be his last concert, but as it turned out to be, it was indeed his last in that city. You know, he was 88 years old. Yes, he was 88 years old. And because of physical weakness, he had undergone 3 cardiac arrests earlier and a backbone problem. The maestro was not in a position to sit in the traditional squatting position in which Indians play classical music. So he was sitting on a bench, like we sit on a chair, which, let me repeat, is not the position where one would normally expect a sitar player to sit in. But so great was the, intent to perform that he was sitting there, legs down, in a chairish position on a bench. Because of a paralysis which had happened 2 years ago, his left hand could not move more than, a foot or maybe 14 inches from where he was sitting. And it could not cover the entire stretch of the fretboard of a sitar, which most of you would have seen one. It has a long, slender, 3.5 feet fretboard. So his hand would not move on the fretboard. So a specially customized instrument had been made by him, which had a much shorter, far slender size, and it would only go up to 14 inches. So, this was done because despite his physical handicaps, the Pandit had this resolve to play. And he began his concert by saying that I know I may not be able to play the way I did 40 years ago, but I will try my best. And to me, every concert is an experience in new learning. In my profession, he said, which was the profession of performing Indian classical music, he said that it's absolutely imperative to learn. And we as practitioners and performers keep on learning every single moment. So if you hear me playing something different today, do not be surprised, because I am learning with each passing day. And the day I cease to learn, my music is going to stop forever. I thought it's a great recall for this date some years ago, and a great recall on what learning meant to somebody who had actually mastered the art of sitar playing many, many decades ago and was hailed as one of the greatest in the world. But such was his humility and his passion to innovate and learn that this is what he truly felt, despite physical handicaps. And that, in essence, also signifies the spirit of winning together. Winning Together, ladies and gentlemen, is a program that we have designed for you to help you keep abreast of what's happening in the world of lighting technology, in the world of lighting design, in the world of products, luminaires, controls, so that, in your respective areas of work, you can offer the knowledge of complete lighting solutions when it is needed. And as pioneers in the lighting industry, we feel it is our duty, our responsibility to share with you what we know of the science of lighting. Today's webinar, ladies and gentlemen, is on green lighting. And green lighting is something that has come to pervade all aspects and all walks of life, so to say. Even my 12-year-old daughter comes back from school and talks of a greenhouse, a green society, a green road, and a green world. The Prime Minister has started a new strategy for green. You see, the whole world is looking for greener solutions to save energy, to conserve the environment, and to make life healthier. And we have very few people in the world of Philips experts better than Ashish Behel, who's the presenter for today, to talk about green lighting. An architect by training, Ashish has been an expert on green lighting for many years now and is a much sought after lecturer, not just in Philips Lighting Academy, which indeed he is, but in various forums which talk of lighting learning in the country. Ashish will be presenting to you not one, but two consecutive webinars, this one and the one which will follow in a couple of weeks. This time next month, two back-to-back webinars on green lighting. The first one, which is today's, which is going to talk about new constructions, and the second one, which will happen next month, where he's going to talk about old buildings and retrofit lighting. So over to you, Ashish, on that note, and wish you all a very, very happy learning session.
Right. Thank you, Shamuda, and good afternoon, all. My name is Ashish Behel. As already introduced, I'm an architect. I've worked with Philips for some time now. Today, I'll be talking about green lighting solutions for new constructions, and with whatever role that all of you play in the construction industry, it is very important to know this little bit of lighting as well, which is adding. It has its own value add to the green, resolution that probably the entire world is having. Not only our government, not only all of us as professionals. So this is another contribution to the word of green. Okay. So today, I'll be talking about lighting versus energy. I mean, in terms of energy, where does lighting fare in India, across the world? A little bit of statistics there. Then I will be going in to talk about basic parameters of lighting. We may be talking great things about energy, but end of the day, it has to suffice some basic needs. Lighting, lights up our lives, and it has to be the right light. It cannot be just because you have to save energy. It cannot be light which is lower or which is affecting our health and so on and so forth. So we have to know certain parameters. A little overview of that. Then I will be talking about the green building movement in India. The market that we work in primarily, and how and what is happening and where are we standing. Then of course, how do you do green lighting? I mean, in green building, where we talk about green lighting, not green as a color indeed. So how do you do efficient lighting practices in a green building scenario? And of course, the last section, which I would like to reassert, that green does not mean boring, green does not mean uninteresting or stale. It is just smart, it is inspirational and whatnot. So here we start our journey. Lighting versus energy. Well, we are already aware that as not only in India, across the world also, we're living in a time where energy and climate challenges are increasingly capturing the world's attention. the climates are changing. There is some kind of disaster here or there happening. It is all because of that imbalance that the human being has created in the overall environment. So it is indeed catching that kind of attention, the kind of importance to not only in the governments, but also corporates, but also a lot of other, even common man for that matter, and also professionals. So we got to be very careful in. So probably we were not practicing green consciously earlier, but now I think we are henceforth even teaching our next generation to be, to move ahead in a green fashion, not using polythene and whatnot. I mean, there are many initiatives that are happening. So in this session, we'll be talking primarily about lighting in the building, of course. So a little bit of statistics there. Currently, 50% of the world's population is urban. In the next probably 35 odd years, this number will reach 75%, which will be consuming much more energy, or rather, which will be requiring much more energy than what we need today. In terms of, if I call it energy offender in buildings, well, lighting falls in, takes away the 17% part, which is pretty sizable. Yeah, in terms of, if you look at, I have the statistics of US at the moment, but I can represent any other country indeed. So buildings consume 72% of electricity consumption, 39% of energy usage, 38% of CO2 emissions, 40% of raw materials, and so on and so forth. So there is, buildings are a big offender, so to speak, right? And since the cities are growing, I think this number is going to go up, and we have to get more as conscious as possible, as aware, and also put our awareness into action ahead. And that's where a little bit of lighting knowledge and how do you do green lighting matters. If I compare lighting production to carbon dioxide emissions, a very important measure of pollution, so to speak, or CO2 greenhouse emissions. So lighting accounts for nearly 6% of global carbon dioxide emissions, which is indeed sizable enough. 1,900 metric tons of CO2 per year is indeed a huge amount, in which, if you see, vehicle lighting is a mere, let's say 0.9% or something like that, which is pretty minimalistic. Primarily, it is the coal or nuclear sourced electric grid related lighting. Yeah, so there is a lot, and of course, within which lighting is 17%, so to speak. So that's indeed a huge pie. There's a big opportunity that we have in front of us, right? If I look at it from a country to country perspective, the lighting consumption per capita, average global consumption is 21 megalumen. Let's not look at the number, but just to see what is the scale of things. 21 megalumen hours per person. And as you can see in the graph itself, North America, Japan, Korea, Australasia are the highest consumers. Whereas, let's say in India, where we are all Indians, it is just 3 megalumens hours per person per year, which is not even, close to 1/7 of the average. And of course, we are much behind. We are rather a dark country. Not to say that it is a good or a bad sign, but I'm just saying that we need more light, right? We can't be wasting light indeed, like many developed countries are doing. But as a developing nation, and as a nation which is looking for more safety, security, and we are hearing of such bad news across the country of mishaps. I think the last one was Patna Stampede, but there was not enough light or light in that compound, and which led to deaths of a lot of people. So small things like these matter. So that is where we have to also. So in India, we have a huge opportunity to be able to light our nation, and this is just a start to show that. Next slide. So if I just compare efficacy, a lighting system efficacy, which is basically how much light are we producing per watt consumed, yeah, which is where, let's say, Japan, Korea, or China are leading and the rest of the world is really back. So technology is also pushing its parameters across the world, and I think with new technologies working in, these numbers will have to go up. We cannot just waste any watt which is produced to generate low lumens or low light, so to speak. So technology is also playing its role. So this is all to put it in perspective, that lighting being a major contributor to the energy and the carbon dioxide emissions and so on and so forth, we have a large role. Lighting, we as a professional lighting, and lighting as such has a large role to play to be able to reduce that kind of contribution, and of course, be a green product or green solution, so to speak. So what can we do with lighting? So as we know, 17 to 20% of world's energy costs are toward lighting. So that's a huge number. Even if we are able to cut any percentage of that, it's profit. It's profit not only for our pockets, it's also profits for the users, for Mother Earth, so on and so forth. Yeah, and more than 80% of current lighting in use in the world is based on old technology, which consumes more energy and indirectly causes more carbon dioxide emissions. I already mentioned that. So even if we convert a little percentage, let's say 20% of current lighting to energy efficient lighting, we can save a huge number. I mean, this number can vary. I'm just saying there is a huge opportunity as business, huge opportunity as green crusaders, huge opportunity to be able to give our next generation a cleaner, greener future. Yeah. So, if I put it the marketing way, and if it can catch somebody's eye, so turning off a photocopier at the end of the workday saves a little percentage of energy, but switching on energy efficient lighting saves up to, so it says up to 75%. This number can vary from situation to situation. Yeah. Similarly, same goes with switching computer equipment. But lighting, that is just 0.5%, but lighting can give you 75%. That's a huge number. And of course, an opportunity not to be missed completely. There's a huge number there, of course, but it will vary from situation to situation. But indeed, to pop few eyeballs, if I may say so, to show you the opportunity in terms of lighting in an energy efficient way. So, what does the future hold for us? Let's unravel slowly in the presentation. Yeah, but prior to that, if I can run you through a couple of very basic parameters of lighting, because we need to understand what lighting is also, not in a very scientific manner, but probably as a user, probably as a consumer, probably as a consultant, or as a person who's knowledgeable. Yeah, you need to just to know, because so we may be talking about great opportunities otherwise, but even if we do that at the cost of these basic parameters of safety, security, health, I think that we're making a big mistake. I think these are the hygiene factors of lighting which need not be left behind, and this is why it is my duty to update you or keep it in the know that what parameters we have to keep upright, and the rest, of course, can be negotiated to be made green. So light has the power to transform life. It is the most visible user of power. So when you see, okay, even in at homes, and normally this is a practice we are also teaching the next generation, that if you see there are no people in a room or in an office or in a space, please switch off, because then you can see what is happening. It's a visible user of power. It's guzzling in front of you, yeah, which may not be the case probably with a couple of other things, maybe computer screens or maybe even air conditioning for that matter. Yeah, but normally lighting does have a switch which you can reach out and switch off, right? So that's the most very interesting part, that it is something we can control. Yeah, most of the time we can control that. So how does it affect our lives? Yeah, so light affects us in three prime ways as human beings: visual, emotional, and biological. So just to unravel a little more, so lighting influences the way we perform. You see, so normally if the space is dark and we're asked to run in that space, maybe it is not possible, right? So lighting levels. So we need to have the appropriate lighting level. Yeah. Also, in the case, let's say, when we go with, let's say, ladies to shop, and mostly ladies are the one which are looking at good colors, and they are the ones who know that better. They generally do not believe the shopkeeper when they buy a fabric, so to speak. So they actually take the fabric out in the sun to see, okay, what is the true color of that fabric, for example. Yeah. So that is the recognition or the color rendering of that lighting. So so this is a very interesting parameter which is used by the retail industry to make the apples redder, or the even bananas greener for that matter. So they use a certain kind of lighting also in, let's say, the retail, apparel retail, where they make that dress so enticing just by lighting that you or your spouse may want to buy it immediately. So this is a very interesting parameter, but very important one indeed. So we need lighting which will do good color rendering, show colors as they are, and not fool us around, basically. Of course, glare-free environments. We don't want lighting to put glare into our eyes. Probably when we are driving and there is a car or some vehicle coming from the opposite, and the the light of from that vehicle chokes our eye or glares our eye, we become numb for a second or two probably, and there may be a possibility of an accident then. Small things like these, even in workspaces, offices, when the light is directly falling into our eyes, it becomes difficult. Yeah, and we cannot sit there for a long number of hours. It affects our health in the long term. So it influences our vision that way. So what we need is an even light distribution. It should be uniformly lit. The space should mostly be uniformly lit. Of course, depends on where we are using, but to be able to be safe, it has to be evenly lit. Of course, task orientation, safety, guidance, these are small little things which light ought to do. Make sure that we are oriented, make sure we are safe, we do not trip on something. It is helping us guide to a certain, or help us reach some place. Yeah. Of course, shadow has to be reduced, scattering has to be reduced. So these are little things that how lighting influences our vision. Yeah. Let's see how it affects us emotionally. Very interesting. Yeah? So light colors, mostly this is used in hospitality or homes, and so where we are able to influence our mood. Lighting does that. So you go to a high-end restaurant, the lighting is dimmed, the music is dimmed, and you feel it is a fine dine for that matter. Or else, if you go to a quick service restaurant, the music is loud, the lighting is high, it's all sparkle, bling bling. So it's setting a mood. There's a separate mood when we're going to two different places. The same can now be also set at our homes. A lot of lighting controls have walked in, and you press a button saying, okay, I want a TV watching mode, and it's possible to do that. All the kind of lighting layers which suit themselves to arrive at that kind of a mood, right? So what are the components? Light, color, of course. Very interesting things are happening in the world of lighting, where we can actually control the color of the light source through our mobiles and tabs and whatnot. It's all possible now. Even contrast and sparkle. I talked about that restaurant, a high-end one, fine dine, where because the light is only on your table, there is a high level of contrast, and you feel that it's upmarket, and it gives you that kind of mood, right? Also, dynamics and flexibility, and also playful use of light. So very, very interesting things are being, lighting is being used to create that kind of ambience to affect us emotionally. Yeah. So coming Diwali, you will feel that it's Diwali because of lighting, right? And it is affecting us, influences us positively, emotionally, motivates us, so on and so forth. So light with our culture probably is much more connected than probably many other cultures. Okay, let's talk about how it affects us biologically. Now, I talked about glare earlier, right? I also talked about the fact that, rather, I would like to talk about the fact that it influences concentration, relaxing. So, for example, in the night when you want to relax, and you will definitely use dimmed lights, or probably lamps on the side of your bed to dim the room lights, and then you can start relaxing slowly. Then slowly your hormones start settling, and you feel sleepy because of that. Let's say we replace it with full lights in the room, and then you want you to sleep. It cannot happen. Yeah. So it is affecting us. And if, let's say, there is a lot of light and you have to still sleep, it will disturb your sleep cycle, disturb your health. It is affecting us biologically indeed. Yeah. So also similarly, in a lot of workspaces which do not, let's say, in an office, people are sitting in very deep buildings and they are under artificial lighting for the entire day. If they do not get to see a little bit of sunlight as well, I think it'll affect their health in a very negative manner. So there is a lot of value in using sunlight in offices or in probably all kind of spaces. We need to be connected to nature, right? So there is a interesting biological connection, or rather light versus health, which is there, right? So these are the three prime ways how lighting is affecting us. To take it ahead, let me run you through a couple of parameters, principal requirements, visual performance, visual comfort, ambience, cost effectiveness, and application issues. I'll quickly run them through. These are not very difficult, but this is to be kept in mind apart from the light levels, the lux levels, the color rendering index that we talked about earlier. So, for example, in visual performance, it affects individuals in the way they work. So if you can see on the screen, there's a graph which shows that when the illumination is increased, the relative increase in productivity is higher with the difficult tasks. So when you're doing very accurate things, for example, diamond cutting or probably making watches, very small, or maybe gold plating for that matter, you need high levels of light, which may not be the case, let's say, in an office where even if I increase the lux levels, the productivity may not go as high as was expected. So depending on the type of a task, the lighting levels, it affects it in a positive way, and in a varied way also for that matter. Yeah, so it affects speed and accuracy. It affects fatigue and eye strain, morale and motivation. It will probably reduce the corrected, or it will correct errors, or that kind of ratio also goes better. And total cost of quality. Yeah, so the worth of your money is actually harnessed if you are able to comply by the visual performance parameter. Moving ahead, visual comfort. Now this is where it comes to our eyes primarily. Productivity, well-being and motivation. Also glare, disorder and distraction, color, flicker and noise. These are not to be remembered. I mean, you don't have to really cram them, but just this is to keep in the mind when you are defining lighting for a space or building or something like that. Yeah. Of course, ambience. Ambience is affected by light source and color. So what is the color of source of light, whether it is warm, cool, neutral, whatnot. Yeah. Form of the fixture, how the luminaire looks. Yeah. How is it a beautiful looking luminaire? Is it a basic luminaire? It does affect the ambience. Integration with the architecture, how, in what space, is it really going with the space, or it is just an aberration from that space? And of course, the kind of effects the light source gives. And of course, how can we forget that ambience needs vary from space to space. So there is from a restaurant to a hotel to to an office, hospital for that matter, they all their needs are varying. There are different needs when it comes to ambience. So we got to be very sensitive to where we are applying. So ambience is the end result of that. Of course, everything costs. So there has to be a cost effectiveness. We also got to see, how, what is the initial cost of fixtures, lamps, or for that matter, now because of LED, the fixture and lamp is also one. So the light source, so to speak. Controls, how are we controlling it? Is it automatic? Is it manual? What kind of switching? Is it an automatic control or a sensor-based control? And how are these luminaires being installed? So these are practical parameters, but to be checked before. Of course, the long-term cost, which is the energy cost when it is being used. There is also a lamp replacement at the end of life of the lamp, let's say in a conventional situation. What is the cost? So is it a cost-effective solution? We got to look at it as total cost of ownership. So when often we buy a car, you should not only look at how much it costs in the beginning, but how it runs, what is the average that it gives, how much does it need to maintain such a car. So you got to look at it, let's say, from a 5-year perspective, probably not from the 1-year perspective. Maybe it turns out to be cheaper in the longer run, but probably expensive in the front, or the other way around as well. It maybe turn out to be cheaper in the beginning, but difficult to run and maintain. So that's how interesting and comparable lighting is for that matter. Although the entrance bar is, the threshold is pretty lower. And of course, maintenance labor, I talked about the lamp replacement and maintenance labor. And of course, how and where are we installing? So for example, is it a new project? So in this case, today we're talking about a new project, but there can also be a situation of a renovation or a retrofit, where renovation is we are completely changing the interiors of a building or office or a home. We're completely changing the luminaires. Or a retrofit where the luminaire remains, lamp source is changed to a more efficient lamp source for that matter. And of course, there are environmental concerns because, for example, the conventional fluorescent solutions, the CFS, the T5, the T8, you cannot just dump them because there is mercury inside, and which goes in our groundwater, and we eventually end up drinking it. So it affects our health in the long run. So these are the basic parameters when you end up choosing. So what are the parameters when you choose what kind of lighting this is? So this is the section on that. I want to end it here, and we'll go to the next section, which is talking about introducing to you the green building movement, and in this case, in case of India only. A lot of theoretically and historically, Indians have been building green since our Maharajas and Mughals and whatnot have been building. So it's a concept which is not new to us, but meanwhile, because of the building revolution, we completely forgot our principles, and hence some kind of corrective action happened through what we call a green building movement, which started in 2001, where we had the IGBC walking in. The IGBC was a joint exercise between CII, Confederation of Indian Industries, and Godrej, and the Indian Green Building Council was formed, which was basically sort of an agency which framed the rules of building green, right? So it had very interesting, not only energy efficiency, but site selection, indoor air quality, how to run and maintain a building. It created a very interesting set of parameters in conjunction with the USGBC, the US Green Building Council. That was then, but of late, recently, they have dissociated with the USGBC, and they have also elaborated the parameters to suit the Indian needs very recently. So this is one green building rating system we will definitely be talking about today. Yeah. As it's already mentioned, it is voluntary, consensus-based, market-driven. A lot of this particular rating system is actually dearer to the industry. A lot of companies and organizations and industries follow this, maybe because it was born out of CII and something like that, but the adherence to this, if I call it a religion, a green religion, is at the moment more, because probably it started earlier. I'll be talking about another one after this. So IGBC is a popular rating system. It is based on professional references like National Building Code, ASHRAE, ECBC. These are all, out of these three, ASHRAE is an American code, NBC is a National Building Code, Indian. ECBC is also Energy Conservation Building Code, which is also Indian. Yeah. So this rating system is based on 5 elements of nature. Very interesting. They call them Panch Bhutas, a very Sanskrit, very Vedic way of working. An assessment is by a lot of green building consultants, yeah, which actually study, or which are hired by, let's say, building owners, and who present their case to, let's say, IGBC for rating those projects, so to speak. So how the life cycle works: a project, any building, any SEZ, any industry, any home, so on and so forth. They register with an IGBC, they say that yes, we will want to go for a rating system, and then they are being given those documentaries that okay, this is how you go green, this is the kind of steps you should take, and if they follow, and at the end of the project, that the points are assessed, and then they are given a rating, let's say in this case a silver, gold, platinum, or a super platinum rating system. Yeah. So just to go a little ahead on what happens with lighting in this case, so I cannot run you through the entire booklet. You can definitely go to IGBC website and you can actually download all these rule books. They are pretty much available, free. This PDF can be downloaded. What I would like to highlight today is about the conjunction with lighting primarily. So this is a IGBC NB, which is a new building rating system, new construction, new building. So there are a couple of interesting so this sums up to, for your information, 100 points, right? Out of possible 100 points, let's see how many points lighting can contribute to, which is a big number indeed. So for example, in sustainable sites section, there's a credit 8 which talks about lighting pollution reduction. We will be talking about lighting pollution in a little while, but just to remember, 1 point is possible here. Similarly, in the energy efficiency section, they talk about optimizing of energy performance of a new building from an ASHRAE standard. So the improvement has to be 6% for a new building. Let's remove the existing route, but 6% to 34% if you do the reduction to this kind of 6, 8, 10. There are a lot of in betweens. So from 1 to 15 points are possible if my energy performance. I'll tell you the parameters of measuring it a little later, right? Also in credit 3.0, if the 2.5% to 7.5% of building's energy use is through on-site renewable energy system, you get from 2 to 6 points. So that's also a good number of points. So if you are using renewable energy, hydel, solar, wind, anything, so you can definitely, your projects can definitely earn that kind of points. And of course, there's a point of lighting management system. You get 1 point for that. There's a new introduction this time, which is on building materials and resources, which talks about use of certified green building materials, products, and equipment. So this you may get from 1 to 5 points. Our new technologies definitely qualify for this. We'll be talking about this. And then there is a point about indoor environmental quality, which talks about daylighting. Now, this is something which probably does not fall in the realm of, let's say, artificial lighting, but it is important to talk about because it is still lighting, right? And then there are 4 points possible for innovation in design. So quite a few number of points are possible out of 100 points which lighting can contribute. There's a big opportunity for us in the green building movement, so to speak. At the moment, IGBC claims to have close to 1.5 billion square feet committed for green buildings. So that's a huge opportunity for us, for lighting for that matter. The other rating system is called GRIHA, Green Rating for Integrated Habitat Assessment. The parent of GRIHA in the earlier case was CIA. In this case, it is TERI, the Energy Research Institute, jointly with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. So they again, so for example, IGBC was brought by the US GBC to India. So the Indian government decided with TERI to be able to create its own very Indian rating system. Also made it, the term GRIHA is pretty Indian, as you know. So again, very similar. It sums up to 100 points based on NBC, ASHRAE, ECBC. Very similar system, but approach is a little different. They look at climatic zones and a little bit like that, but not that does not deter us from going green in the lighting way. Just to know that this is another religion. This one is dearer to mostly government systems, CPWD, PWDs, NBCCs, these kind of institutions, abide by GRIHA mostly. In fact, there is a circular which we have heard that every new construction in government systems have to achieve at least 3-star rating. This goes to from 1 star to 5 star. So at least 3-star rating in GRIHA, every new building of government has to be. So that is the kind of usher the government is thrusting towards their own infrastructure as well. Yeah, if you go ahead. So, talking about lighting in the GRIHA rating system, again, very similar points. This one talks about an outdoor lighting system efficiency. This also talks about optimizing building design by reducing conventional. So, design daylighting, they already talk about optimizing energy performance from 10 to 40% less than the benchmark figures, which is ECBC, which is also similar to ASHRAE. Use low energy materials in interiors. So, we can talk about LED for that matter in this case, and renewable energy utilization for a minimum of 10% of internal lighting load has to go from renewable energy. So they're very similar in, let's say, IGBC way of working, although their approach is a little different. Also, they talk about building operation and maintenance. We talk about energy audit and validation, and building operation and maintenance has to be done appropriately. And of course, there's a point of innovation where somebody goes out of the box to create something interesting. So lighting can also fall into one of these. So quite a few points again are possible. I have not listed the points here, but it's very similar to IGBC. But what is important here is how do we, maybe the building going for IGBC or GRIHA or USGBC or LEED rating or any rating system, the rules for lighting still remain very same or similar. And which is what I want to, assert on today, which is the next section. We do these small things, and be it any green building religion under the sun, you will comply to most of the rules. If you follow by these small little ways of designing lighting, we will definitely be meeting all the rules set up by these rating systems, the green rating system. So I call this a green lighting. So what is the green lighting approach? These are the 5 or 6 points that I would be talking about quickly again. So there's one which is green product approach, the efficient product approach, energy saving system approach, lighting pollution reduction, renewable energy approach, and daylighting. So out of which the top 3 are connected. They are like starting from how the product was produced to how efficiently the product works. Products means the lighting source or luminaire for that matter. And third point, which is how it is applied as a system. So not looking at one luminaire, but how it is distributed in the space or where it is intended to be. The rest 3 points are individual applications. You need a sanity of mind in terms of how we approach them. So let me run you through these 6 points quickly. To begin with, green product. So let's say IGBC talks about green material or green product or a green system. So they have not yet defined it specifically for lighting for that matter. They are yet in the process of doing it. But the prime criteria are innovation, product design, product performance, raw material, manufacturing process, waste management, and the complete life cycle approach. So these are the criteria which, let's say, a green product ought to have as defined by IGBC at the moment or CII. Yeah. So this is just to put things in perspective that, how will these technologies be rated. But to, bring, let's say, what in Philips we follow. In fact, I can quickly show you, how, let's say, in Philips we rate ourselves as green. So just again to put things in perspective, although a product can be green, but or in, let's say, how it was produced, what is the embodied energy it had, when it was produced. So how much energy was consumed per unit of production of, let's say, a LED bulb or a CFL or a GLS bulb for that matter, is actually pertaining to, let's say, 4% of it is life energy. Yeah, the majority of energy actually is consumed in how the product is used. So if you can see, the lion's share still goes to how it is being used. But this is just to put things in perspective that, how important is the life cycle. But nevertheless, even if it is a green product, even if it is 4%, the product or the light source that you choose should be green. So that, that we will still like to assert. So how do we do it in Philips? And these are simple rules I would like to showcase to you so that, these rules you can apply by the time IGBC or GRIHA comes up with detailed standards. These are very simple things. So in Philips, we talk about a life cycle approach or an eco design approach where we have these 6 green focal areas. Again, very similar to what you saw with, let's say, the IGBC guidelines. We talk about energy efficiency, energy consumption, which is supposed to be 10% lower than a benchmark product, at least. Yeah. Or even efficacy or light output ratio. Basically, it has to be better in terms of energy consumption over a benchmark. Let's say if it's an LED bulb, so how better it is from in energy consumption from, let's say, a CFL or a GLS or something like that. Is it its packaging is smaller from a benchmark, 10% less in packaging in volume or weight? The moment its volume or weight goes lower, I can transport more of them per, let's say, per truck, and its energy consumption or cost per unit also comes down indeed. So it pays to produce or a smaller product, so to speak. Yeah. Of course, hazardous substance, it has to have 10%, at least 10% lesser weight of, let's say, the hazardous substances. Yeah, the RoHS compliance. Yeah, or else it has to be at least have less than 10%. At least 10% radiation dose reduction should happen. Packaging and weight I already talked about, whether it should be at least 10, should be greater than 10% reduction in the weight. Possibility to recycle and dispose is also a very important criteria, and also in terms of lifetime. So if it is at least 10% more than a benchmark lighting source in terms of life, then it is definitely a greener product. It is very difficult to otherwise calculate a embodied energy of a green product or any product for that matter. So we had to benchmark one and then measure the rest on the same benchmark. So in Philips, if we create a green product, you see a green leaf on the right top of the slide. So we give it that kind of a indication that look, this is a greener product. Yeah. So so this is one way of achieving. So the choice of the luminaire or the light source is one very simple way to enter the green building arena. I already showed you that IGBC and GRIHA both talk about using green products. So this is a first step. Also, to put things in perspective, still in terms of looking at it from a life perspective in long term, for a 25,000 hour usage, if I compare a 12 watt, or probably this wattage is still reduced, probably it is 8 watt now, but indeed, just to put things in front of you, one 12 watt LED bulb can run for 25,000 hours as compared to 3¼ 14 watt CFL, as compared to 25 60 watt incandescent bulbs. So as you can see, in terms of wattage, in terms of life, it is pretty much clear what is the equivalence of the comparison. If you tread a little further, we've actually done the comparison in terms of the complete life cycle analysis from usage to transport to packaging to production. Yeah, if you can see, still the LED definitely wins, in terms of total life cycle impact on energy. So it is easily the greener product compared to, and as you can also see, incandescent is a big guzzler. It's a big offender of power, of energy. Yeah. Going ahead. So till now we talked about a green product. Now we will talk about efficient product. Whether the product or the light source is efficient. Is it a good machine? Is it giving ample light out of the box? So maybe the lamp source, let's say the CFL is generating 100 lumens. What do I get outside? Am I getting 50, 60, so on and so forth? So that kind of measure is called light output ratio. What you see on the screen is called LOR. So for a conventional product, so there is a lamp and the luminaire are separate. You got to ask what is the light output ratio for this luminaire, and then you can compare, let's say, how much light is trapped inside and how much is actually being used, right? So this is the case when it comes to conventional luminaire. Although when it comes to an LED, the measure is not about efficiency, because it is about efficacy. Because efficiency wise, all the light that LED is producing is coming out. So it is efficiency wise 100%, but that is not how we measure that is why it is very difficult to compare a CFL with LED, because CFL's lamp is separate and the luminaire is separate, whereas in case of an LED, most often the LED is the luminaire itself. So how do you evaluate energy efficiency in LED? We measure it by lumen per watt, right? It is also important to see that it differs for per LED type, color temperature, which is whether it is warm or cool, and CRI. CRI is color rendering index, where it is a very good luminaire where the light source is rendering the colors in the true sense, or it is making us a fool by changing the colors of what we see. Also, it is important to note that lumen per watt of a bare LED is not equal to lumen per watt of the luminaire due to thermal losses, optical losses, and driver losses. So most often, a lot of people, a lot of light source sellers, they talk about lumen per watt, which are very high, but they do not mention whether that is at the system level, which is at the complete box level, or whether at the bare LED level. Because obviously at the bare LED level, let's say it is 100, but what you get outside at a system level is actually probably 50 because of the thermal and optical and driver losses. This session is not about LED, so I will not run into much of it, but this is just to put things into your mind that look, how do you evaluate efficiency of a light source when it comes to LED. Yeah. Also, what is key to understand that the color temperature, whether it is warm or cool. So cool white LEDs are more efficient than warm light, and also when comparing the total lumen package of the system and not at the bare LED level. So this is a way to measure. So when you measure, like I said, so you cannot compare a CFL to an LED when it comes to efficiency. Of course, you can measure between two CFLs and two LEDs, and these are the ways to do that. Moving ahead, let's go to the system approach. So till now we talked about a green product. After that, we talked about an efficient machine or an efficient product. So efficiency means that how much energy or how much light that I'm investing into and how much I'm getting. It should be as good as possible. Till now we were talking about green product and green machine. Now we will be talking about a system approach. How are we distributing those luminaires, individual luminaires, or those green products, those efficient machines in a space where it is required to be? So we probably will be able to put it very densely, and there will be a lot of light. But where we are doing wrong is the kind of energy we are using or consuming per square feet, right? So this is a measure of that. Lighting power density. It is a measure of how much wattage are we consuming in terms of lighting per square feet or per square meter for that matter. So it was defined by ASHRAE, and there are many ways to compare it, whether approaches of building area method or space by space method. But end of the day, green lighting means we are bettering off by these, by let's say I told you a couple of percentages, 10%, 6%, 32%, 40%. So how much reduction from, let's say, this benchmark figure of ASHRAE standard are we doing by the LPD, as we call it, is what is the where we are actually reducing the overall power consumption. So the key is to design appropriately or efficiently the luminaires within the defined space. It cannot be a thumb rule. The heights vary, the way the walls are around the space vary, the color of walls vary, the reflectivity of these walls vary. So quite a few parameters are there for making sure all those lighting parameters I talked about, if they have to be met indeed, and then meeting all that, and then we can measure the LPD and see how better we've done from the benchmark figure. Right? So this is a system approach. How are we distributing it among the space? Also, if I move ahead in the system approach, so there is, in a system approach, we can also look at how are we controlling it as a system. So there is, this use of sensors when it comes to, let's say, motion detection. This person is not there in the room and the light source is still on, that is wastage of light. So even if, and also the loss in terms of life of the luminaire also, because the more it burns, the life becomes shorter. So then this is on basis of motion reduction. Then there is obviously the daylight linkage, where there's ample daylight coming in from the windows or any other light source, any other opening in the wall or the ceiling. Then the light itself should be able to dim to adjust the person's requirement, or maybe switch itself off. And there can also be a combination of daylight and motion detection. So this is a system approach, when not defining a individual luminaire, but also controlling it as a system. Yeah. So there's automatic. So it is just making it automatic. Of course, we can make it manual also. So, but the easier way, we are working in large buildings. It's very difficult to manage, maintain, switching on, off, these kind of things. So we can put them into circuits, manage them by using lighting controls through motion sensors and daylight detectors. Yeah, this is when it comes to, let's say, a relatively smaller building. But when it comes to a larger building, we can also look at an energy management system or a lighting management system, where every light point has an IP address and it gives back information, takes instructions, and you can have light scenes, and all that is possible. You also come to know how much energy were we guzzling today, did we do good. So it is like an information coming back from these luminaires telling us how they did for the day, and so on and so forth. So this is a system approach of managing the energy from a lighting perspective. Yeah. So this is the point number 3. Here we end the 3-tier system. The rest 3 are independent systems or independent approaches. To begin with, pollution reduction, light pollution reduction. I'm sure on the screen you cannot see much because there is so much pollution coming from these buildings, and I cannot read what is happening on. It is actually glaring my eyes. So we don't want such kind of cities where we are wasting light and throwing it to spaces where we do not need. Most of us who fly in the night can look down from the flight and see how much light is coming up in the sky. It is, we don't need it up there. You need darkness above. It is affecting a lot of animal life. Migratory birds lose their path, they die on the way. A lot of forests are receding, the tigers are coming out, and we are all disturbing and disbalancing the animal kingdom. So light pollution also has to be controlled. Yeah, where we have to go is this, much more cleaner, where we can see the sky. Yeah, it has to be dark. So what we need to do is do uniform illumination, zero trespass at project boundaries. It means light should not go out of my space. I don't need it. I don't have to invest in lighting outside my space. No uplighting of trees and also facades. Try and minimize it to as much as possible. Of course, there are small rules in these light pollution part also, which if somebody does fine reading in the, let's say, IGBC code book, will tell you that how much light is permissible. Let's say if it is the city center in a big town, then probably 15% of total light produced can go up, so on and so forth. So some caveats are there in this point, but primarily the rule says that we should not do a lot of uplighting. We should make sure the light is falling within our premises. It is not spilling out to spaces where it is not required. Yeah. So this is purely an application or a sane application perspective. This is not something to do with technology or anything. It is just the fact that we have to respect nature and not do light pollution. Yeah. Moving ahead, from the renewable energy approach, the simplest technology available is probably using solar street lighting, because in the city that we live in, it is very difficult to bring hydel or solar, at least in the urban areas I can talk about. Probably in rural areas, it is possible to also do that. So the easiest system or source or lighting system that we can apply is solar street lighting system. It is being used from very much across India, across developing nations, and is an easy step forward. I don't have much to talk about here, but just to put it in perspective, that this particular point of renewable energy, harnessing the renewable energy from both these GRIHA and IGBC rulebook, the easiest step is this. So you can definitely pick this up or propose to whoever is making a green building. Of course, this is a little out of the Philips way, but still it is important to talk about daylighting. We are making very deep buildings these days, and natural light doesn't reach us most often. So we have to maintain that connection to natural light to be able to feel healthy. The occupants have to feel healthy like that. So we're talking about daylight and not sunlight here. So you will see that sun, even if it is used, if it is ushered into the building directly, it can also cause problems in terms of glare, also affect air conditioning. It can increase the load. We're making a lot of glass building these days to be able to do that, but that's also wrong, because we have to also see the orientation of the building, whether it should actually, we should be using most of the north light, because that is where pure light comes and there is no direct sunlight. Also, if there is, we have no choice, and we should be using interesting measures like the one being shown. Now, this is not a very good example, because either there is glare in the person's on the tabletop, or there is less light in the way it is being distributed. These are light shells, by the way, or else. So this is another interesting way how the size and the position of window has been shifted to be able to adjust to work conditions. And now both the gentlemen are able to, for example, get equal amount of light or good lighting, natural lighting, and of course, I'm sure there are sensors there to make sure that the artificial light is switched off or dimmed to be able to adjust to that situation. So another very interesting way of doing it is using skylights like these. So many ways are possible. This is not our prerogative, but this is just a suggestion that whoever is making a green building, I think this is a very important and interesting way, apart from, of course, using lighting controls and artificial lighting, to be able to contribute to daylighting. And obviously, this will reduce your energy bills as well. This is also the time to commemorate the news that came yesterday that the inventors of blue LED lights have been conferred the Nobel Prize for Philips, that happened for physics, sorry, yesterday itself. So that's it, and it is, I think, better late than never. But this technology has actually revolutionized the lighting industry, and also in its contribution to the green building movement per se as well. So again, so we feel really proud that the technology and our so much contribution to green building is being commemorated like this on a global scale. Just to sum up on LED front, I will not talk long, but just to give you some point in perspective in terms of comparison between LEDs and conventional light sources, does have advantages. So the long-lasting and low maintenance, energy efficiency, of course. So these are a known fact, but maybe somebody doesn't know some bits. So I just wanted to put things on a screen. So dynamic control is possible, digital control rather. The possibility to be able to use it through your mobile was not possible with, let's say, CFL or from a computer for that matter, not possible with earlier technologies. It is small, so design flexibility is offered. It is directed light, so lot of light is not wasted. It is much like a torch, so you can use almost 100% of its light. Robust and vibration proof. Other technologies were gas based. This is a solid state technology, so much more robust. Even if it falls, I don't think much will happen. I mean, you shouldn't try that, but just to say that CFL or LED or a normal bulb would have blasted their way out because of it's brittle, of course. Turns on instantly, no infrared and UV radiation, so pretty safe for inhabitants, which was the case, let's say, with CFL and also the incandescent technology. Cool beam of light. Of course, there is heat generated, but that heat has to be dissipated in a heat sink, so to speak, which the heat is thrown behind. Low voltage, and of course, no mercury, so no contribution to, hazardous substances to Mother Earth, of course. So quite a few possibilities, quite a few advantages that LEDs give. Of course, to be, and this is one point I really wanted to bring forth in terms of key questions to ask when evaluating LEDs. So what is the light output in delivering lumens of the system and not the bare LEDs? I talked about it earlier. And what is the total system wattage or consumption, including the driver? Are photometric files available? So whoever comes to sell you LEDs, you ought to ask these very simple, basic questions, so that they don't end up fooling you with false information. So photometric files is one. At comparable light level and color temperature, CCT stands for color temperature, what light source and what it does LED products replace. For example, these days, 15-watt LED downlighter can replace, let's say, a 2 by 18-watt CFL downlighter. So this has to be proven, and then somebody has to, whoever is pushing the product to you should be able to ask this question. They should be able to answer this. So what is the color temperature and the range in variation? So sometimes we've heard that there are color shifts in LEDs. So we got to ask the range in variation of whether it's a cool light or a warm light, and what is the variation in that. So a good company or a good vendor will definitely be able to provide you with that information. If multiple luminaires are used on a project, the color points among them adequately. Are the color points matched? There may be possibility that some are yellow, some are white, some are cool. What is the CRI, the color rendering index? I talked about earlier, the truthfulness in how it shows its color and true colors, measured from, so let's say sunlight is 100, how good is a source of light? So it is 90, 80, 70, whatever. So we got to compare it from that perspective. What is a useful lifetime and how is it defined? So most often they mention 50,000 hours and whatnot. So what is 50,000 hours? Is it the useful life? It is the complete life? What kind of life are they mentioning? So these terms vary from, maybe vendor to vendor, but technologies, I wish this was a LED session, I would have gone at length on this, but just to put things in perspective, does the luminaire have special features for heat sinking or thermal management? Thermal management can make or break an LED. If it is not done well, the LED light that people claim a lot about can actually go haywire. Can the system be dimmed? What is the warranty? What is the experience and reputation of the manufacturer? How about the track record in LED lighting? So these are simple questions to ask, and so that you're sure of what you're suggesting. So because the technology is open, a lot of people who do not understand it are also selling it. So I think we got to be good consumers. Informed consumers are better consumers. Ask the right questions. Also, what to look out for, some kind of disclaimers. So vague claim not supported by data, save 80% energy, but compared to what? What is the benchmark? Lack of or hard to find data on a separate sheet, data in a format that is not consistent with comparable products, footnotes like units may not operate with AC due to low power consumption, luminous flux may vary per LED. Now these are strange numbers, these are strange ways of putting things. Reference to bare LED or light engine performance, light engine lumens instead of luminaire lumens. So system lumen has to be mentioned, not the bare engine. I already talked about it. And also be wary of companies you've never heard of. So be very careful, because light is a long time relationship. Now we're looking at 50, 60, 70,000 hours. You don't want to get fooled investing into things like that, or suggesting it to people who are investing into things like that. So this is where I would like to end the green building part, and I would like to take you through some smart and inspirational part of lighting. Also energy efficient lighting, see what light can do. And I was already talking to you about whether green is not just boring. Green can be very interesting. Green can be smart. Yeah, so this is just a showcase section. I'll quickly run you through a couple of slides where a lot of spaces like personal space, where there's kind of a light source which is based out of LED and color changing. It becomes like a masterpiece in the room, or for that matter, how the ambience of this space or a personal space is varying because of the energy efficient LED lighting that is happening in the backdrop. It is affecting the mood, and all that thing I talked about earlier. I will not go at length on these, but the kind of spaces, personal luminaire like these, hexagonal honeycomb kind of a luminaire based out of LED again. So these are interesting, inspiring, smart spaces, smart lighting which is enhancing the spaces, and also green indeed. So all the boxes are ticked in these cases. For that matter, this is a healthcare, this is a children's hospital, which is all colors and happiness. Even if it is hospital, who said hospitals have to be white only? So this has a cheerful space for children who get healed faster, and light is definitely a good contributor. Yeah. So moving ahead, even again in healthcare, how lighting is helping the medical practitioner heal the patients better, but just by lighting. You see, so this is a very interesting example. I wish I had gone at length into this. This is called HealWell. This is a system that Philips offers often to hospitals. Also in hospitality, light is what creates that ambience. You go, like I was talking about a restaurant. The same goes for any other hospitality space, or for that matter, a spa like this, where lighting is adding to the ambience very interestingly. And also, this is not just lighting; this is actually energy efficient LED lighting. So, not only is this green, but also very inspirational, very upmarket, so to speak. Yeah, even in transit spaces like this metro station, the panel on the right where you can see some silhouettes of people. Most often what happens is this, in the late evenings, these stations become lonely, and people may feel scared when they're sitting alone there. So these are like silhouettes or shadows which are moving on the screen, also doing lighting, so you don't feel alone. So we are not only emotionally but motivating the people, but also making it safer. So more example in terms of transit, how in let's say these public bridges, how lighting, energy efficient, colorful lighting, LED lighting is adding that value, the glare, the glitter in this kind of a space, and adding value to the urban situation of the city. In terms of entertainment, also, how lighting is making it more jazzy, so to speak, and electrifying. Another example of this party space in Amsterdam, where I think lighting is what is doing what is happening. And of course, there is music and whatnot, but how the space is being very electric is because of lighting, and how it is creating that zing into that space. Also in retail, I talked about it. How lighting can make you entice or attracted towards something that you wish to buy. It's a very important contribution, and of course, you can do it the energy efficient way. For that matter, this is a flagship store in Mumbai by Asian Paints, which was done by Philips, where people are able to choose the colors they will paint onto the walls just by using lighting. So, lighting is used in a very energy efficient lighting, or green lighting is being used in a very interesting, inspiring manner across a lot of applications. Also in sports, if you can see this very interesting Olympic stadium, which is like two arcs, and normally you don't see such stadiums, where and again LEDs was being used for this very inspirational, much covered by media stadium. Another very interesting stadium in England, First Direct Arena. This one changes colors every few minutes using LED lighting again. Energy efficiency definitely on the agenda, but also the fact that it highlights the building and its architectural features very interestingly. Also, in terms of landscape, colorful lighting being used in this garden in Russia, which makes the space safe, clean, eventful, and people come more often. As you can see, projections of stars being made on the ground. So very interesting use of lighting beyond illumination. It has its new meanings, and mostly energy efficiency definitely is the agenda. Yeah. In this kind of a space, in like a huge plaza in Netherlands, where they wanted to remove the poles from the street and make the streets more usable to a lot of vendors and users. So they've, as you can see across above, they've actually used a lot of cables above, catenary wires, and small LED sources are being hung in the street. And so these small luminaires are called free street, because we have freed the street from poles, for that matter. So energy efficiency, small in size, solving all the problems, very interesting manner. So a lot of interesting examples across the globe. For that matter, this riverfront, being used, being portrayed to give a city a fillip in terms of its tourism by using energy efficient lighting. Yeah. So green is spectacle, green is aesthetic, green is cool, green is smart. A lot of possibilities being green also gives you. It's not that people may end up saying no, it's green is not something very technical, but this need not be technical. It can be very interesting, very inspiring, very futuristic, very smart for that matter. Yeah. Also, a space like these, if you can see, the colors are changing on the screen. So even if it is a hospital room, I'm sure the person lying on the bed will heal very much fast if he's in such a dynamic lighting space. So that's what my message is. Just to sum up, so sustainable design is rapidly becoming mainstream construction practice. As energy costs rise, the benefits of healthier buildings are quantified, and the price premiums of green building products are falling. And these techniques are no longer viewed as unconventional. So, I'm sure when I talked about LED today, it was not new to you. Of course, you've heard about it. It's not. So slowly, this acceptance is walking in. Probably 3 years back, I would have sounded like an alien to you. But with time, slowly, the penetration of technologies are happening. We are accepting them slowly. And also governments, businesses, owners, and world leaders are expecting all players in the design and construction industry, including architects, consultants, lighting professionals, to readily contribute to high performance and green building programs. So I think it's the need of the hour, need of the day, and I already talked about it in the beginning. So these are very simple steps that I wanted to talk to you about today, so that the larger agendas can also be met easily. Yeah, thank you so much.